In this video, we will create a workflow from scratch. There are typically 2 or 3 ways of creating a workflow. You can use the aid of AI to build your workflow. But for this video, we will actually build it out manually. To enter the workflow screen, there are 2 ways to get into this as well. You can just get into your home page and just select create from scratch, or you can go to your workflow section and then click on plus new workflow. Right. Now, while we are here, the workflow that we'll be creating is a very simple but a very powerful workflow. So we'll be creating an application on Slack which will help you find the right people in any target account. And so all the manual work that we used to have to do on going to Sales Navigator, searching for certain keywords, then having to manually filter through all the people, checking to see whether they're the right person or not, is completely going to be removed and automated through this workflow. So anyone looking for the right people or personas in an account never have to do that again. So let's start with a simple input form. We'll later replace this with Slack. An input form allows us to manually put in an input, and we'll just use the actual some dummy data to test this out while we are building it. Right. So let's just enter the field text to be input text. Right. So once that is done, just wait a few minutes for this to update, and that error text will get removed, and you can run it right from here. So this is just going to process that data. At any point in time, you can check what you're getting as an output. So let me just move myself around. So the input, so I see that there's one column in this table, which is called find the input text, as we named that field input text. And then the value is basically find me all the relevant people in MoEngage. Right. From here, I need to extract the web domain of, or the web URL of MoEngage. Right. So what I need to do is, just have an ask AI node where we'll just say that, say the previous input text, we can access it like this. And we just say that from the above text, extract the name of the company that is mentioned, and then find the URL of the website of this company. Right. And what we'll do also need to mention is the URL, it needs to be in the format of example.com. Right? We don't need the HTTP www parts. And what we need to do is just check which model we want to use. So let's say a GPT 5.1. This is just a single use prompt, not working over multiple, like thousands of different inputs. So I can just use a powerful model here. And in the response type, what we need is a structured output. Why? Because these are certain inputs that we're going to use for the following nodes to get more value out of it. Right. So I can just say name the field website URL, and then I need to just mention official or URL of the web, like GPT-5. Okay. Let me just get out of this and kind of get into the, sometimes it might take a little bit of time to refresh. And then, so I think it's available for GPT 5.1 as well. Let's just enable web search, because now it needs to find this domain. So I don't want to rely on past memory of the LLM. I wanted to actually do a web research and find out the official domain. Right. And then I just hit run. So 5.1 is pretty fast. 5 was fairly slow. So as it runs, so the power of the tool actually lies in the fact that you can constantly check the output that is coming out of each of these nodes. And let me explain a few basic things. Like, for example, this is basically the cost of this is my, dashboard where I can either run the entire workflow, or this is an interesting part where you can switch to a test mode. Test mode, which I'll explain in a different video, is basically where you run not on the entire data set that you have, but a sample of data. Typically, it's just 5 inputs that you have going in, but it'll cost you nothing. And finally, this is adding trigger. If you want to have another trigger to the same workflow, we can add another trigger, right? But typically, we would want to kind of move on with next steps here. At this point in time, let me kind of, now that I have the extracted domain, now I can search for people within that domain, right? So I can just go in here and press look for search people. Right. Now at this point in time, we just have to input the domain. So the website URL that has been extracted in the previous step needs to be there. There are certain terms like, let's say I'm just looking at the marketing persona that I want to find out, right? So I'll have marketing growth, need to comma separate them. Growth, what else do I need? Let's say lead generation kind of. So I'll just keep in lead, right? So that's pretty, and let me just include similar titles so that I don't miss out on any of the personas. Now the meaning here is that when we use a tool like a Zoom Info or a Sales Navigator, we are wary about putting in a lot of broad keywords, but here we don't have to be scared about that because we can just put in as many broad keywords. So for example, if I was looking for marketing ops and there's a person whose title says something like GTM ops, I don't need to worry. I can just put in ops as a keyword here. I later can filter out all the other types of operation roles like product ops or DevOps, etc. Using that AI node I'll have after this. There are a number of other filters that you can find in search people, but here those are not important. For example, I'm not looking for people in a particular location, or I'm looking within a certain company, so I don't need to put in the employee count kind of filter. The important part to look at is the number of outputs that I'm going to get. So you can increase this to up to 10,000 people that you're looking to search for. But for me, I know that number of marketing people is not going to be more than 100, so I keep it up to 100 only. By the way, this is a very adaptable, field. If you change this, the number of credits that will be consumed in this particular node will change because it's finding you more people. But the good part is, even if I select up to 10,000, you will see that a very high number of credits could be consumed, but that's not the case because if I find just maybe less than 100 people, it's still going to be just the charge of that node will not be 300, credits. It'll just be that 100, whatever the charge is up to for 100 people, which is just 3 credits. Cool. So let me just run that. And now I'll start getting a bunch of people here. And again, as we run it, we can also preview the data as I was always. And while you're building these workflows, it's good to have a preview. Right. So now we have certain people here. I could have, let me just show another aspect of this. So I could have chosen certain fields that I need. So for example, say I don't need the last name. So then I don't need a photo URL, Twitter, GitHub, or Facebook hardly ever comes up. This is Apollo embedded. So Apollo hardly ever populates these fields. So I just remove them. Org ID is again something that I don't need. Let's say I'll keep employment history for now. State, city, country is not important for me. Department, sub-department, seniority, functions, these are all calculated fields by Apollo. They do certain approximations based on the title and the headline that they find. Org name is important, or website URL is something that I already have. LinkedIn URL might be helpful. Founded year, logo URL, or a primary domain is not required. Okay? So we have all these. So instead of cluttering my data set with a lot of different information, let me just go ahead and filter that out. I'll run that again and I quickly just start seeing people. Sorry, I just need to get out and get into this again to refresh that preview. Perfect. So now I only have fields that are important for me. Let me shift myself around a little bit. Yeah. So let's kind of look at the kind of people we found. So we have growth kind of people, event marketing lead. This looks good. So if I look at the title and the headline, I am actually finding certain people that are fairly useful, right? But I also see that there are certain sales development. I think might need to remove this, but they also have a growth consultant title. Product marketing manager maybe is not required. I'm only looking for growth oriented people. Just say people focusing on growth and lead gen. Right. So that given that, I can now put in an AI verifier on top of all those profiles. So what I'll come here and do is again have an AI classifier this time, and I'll show you a powerful feature of the platform. Say I don't understand all these fields that I need to put in. I don't need to worry. I can generate the entire configuration of this node using AI. I just need to describe that I want to look at the title and headline of the individual. Wow, I'm making a lot of mistakes. Individual, and I want to classify them as personas only if they have explicitly mentioned that their work is related to growth or generating leads or pipeline, right? Otherwise, classify them as others. And I'll later filter this out, right? And now in a classifier, you could have had multiple classes. So for example, if I was looking to have RevOps as a separate bucket and growth as a separate bucket, etc., I might want to kind of put in more terms around those different, classes that I want to classify them in. And let me just generate that. You will see that this kind of populates the entire configuration. It takes a little bit of time, but there you go. So we have growth personas and others, right? As we kind of did. Now you can also include a reason. This will increase the cost to 2 credits from 1 credit. But what happens when you include the reason is that typically AI kind of behaves better when you've asked it for a reason. Right? And finally, you can allow multiple classes. Here, it does not make sense for me to classify the same persona into 2 different classes. So I'll keep that toggle disabled. And then finally, I can define output name, or it kind of takes up a default output name. So I can just hit run. It'll typically give me an output name that I can work with. Perfect. So now what is happening, it's actually going through 100 different people that were found in the previous node. And for all the 100, it will run that prompt. But on nRev, one advantage is that these don't happen one by one. The prompts are actually being fired parallelly to multiple different AI to these LMs, and then see 100 different calls done in a few seconds. Right now, I can further go in and check what my data set looks like. So now I see that there's this new column called class as a class reason, as we asked it for a reason. And for any of these data points, you can double click on the data itself and start seeing why it has classified it, or the entire content of that column. Right. You can also expand this to kind of get more space on what is happening. So let me kind of look at what has been classified as others, because that is important to filter out to check whether they are not the right people for me at this point in time. So as I filter, kind of go through others, I see that there are 46 rows which have been classified as others, and you can just look through the title and headline to kind of further, kind of both verify this. So there's someone in market research and the title is team lead. So yeah, I didn't want this. Again, technical lead of tech lead. I don't know how this came up, but Apollo gave this as one of the personas. So now we actually don't have to go through each of these profiles and screen them. And you can also, in case you figure that there's some wrong classification, you can go through the reason to kind of then modify the prompt and make sure that you're getting the right people. Perfect. So now that we have the classes already there, I'll just filter out the others persona, because so the and is actually there because you can apply multiple types of filters. So this specifies whether you want to have an and over all those filters or an or condition over it. So let's just go in and say that the class object does not contain others, right? And that should be able to filter it out. From 100, we'll find fewer people that kind of comes in. So we have 54 instead of 100. And then what we can do is, so this is pretty much the entirety of the operation. Right now, what we want to do after this is convert this to an application so that no one has to come to the nRev platform to trigger this. So you probably, let's say I have a channel where all my sales reps exist. So I just give this, create a bot out of this, so that whenever they want to look for personas, they can just quickly come in and write in free text what they're looking for, and they get exactly the right persona. So instead of an input form, now what we want to do is kind of listen to a Slack note, listen to a Slack message. So let me delete this. Perfect. So now this looks like a weird workflow, but let me configure the first node as Slack. Just Slack, and so I want a new message in a channel is what we're looking for, right? And this is whenever a node has a certain that lightning mark right beside it, it's actually an active listening node, right? So it's an automation that you're building now. Let me go into the configurations now, and let me just choose my own account. I'll choose a random channel for myself. Actually, why not do this? Perfect. Sorry. So let me just say I want it on my DM. For your case, you can just go instead of that, direct message. Sorry. Wow, that's strange. Wow. Or let's just choose a random channel. Let's just say, let me look for it. I'll use an internal channel called, so I'll use a demo channel, let's say, right? Here's what it is. So the name of the channel is Demo Competition Tracker. Yeah, that is done. Just look for any other fields. Yeah. So let's also ignore bots and ignore replies in threads. These will not be counted as messages. And there we go. I think we can run this. Now it will start actively listening. So it's kind of testing out in the background. I can just go into this channel and say, find me all relevant people in more engage. Right now, what will happen is as soon as I type that, this listening trigger will know that there's some message that it found on the channel that I just specified. And now I will also have that exact message. So within this output, you will see that there's this message called find me all the relevant people in MoEngage. That's exact, text that I put into Slack. And I just need to connect. This is how you connect two different nodes. There goes. Now our, message looks all good, but then there's some configuration error. That's because the field that I put in here was previously called input text, but now it's called something else, right? So I just can go into insert input and just check for within payloads. I think that was in, let me go out. I forgot where it was in. So it's within blocks and then 0 and then elements, right? Let me try and figure that out. So let's just go in here, insert input, payload blocks, sorry, instead of payload blocks, let me just try. Okay. So payload blocks, I can just actually put it in. So instead of writing from the above text, I can say from the above JSON object, go into the object that has the name. Again, I forgot what it was called. Let me just quickly go in and check again. It was called, so it's called elements, and within that, go into the object that contains, so let's say the elements object that contains text, right? So I just kind of go in here and write from the JSON object, go into the elements object that contains text, and extract the name of the company that is mentioned in the text, and then find the URL. So I think I've used a strong enough model for this. Let me run it and see what it kind of gets me. Okay, I think I'll exit this to kind of reload it. There you go. So it found moreengage.com from all the text we had, right? So similarly, we can just again search people, filter data, etc. now. But let me add the last bit of it, which is sending a message back that contains all the, I'm sorry, sending a message back that contains all the, people that we just found, right? So we'll just say that, and it's called send message, right? So you will find a few options for sending on Slack, but let me quickly complete this. Block it message is a more structured message, or if you want to have a lot of data within your message, kind of use the send large message. But here we're going to kind of send every single person in a different message. So what I can do is, I choose the channel. It's a channel, and then I think it was called demo competition tracker. And what I want to kind of go in and do is use that same thread for sure. I want to kind of go in here and then put in, wow, there was another bot running which gave me this, but I want to put in within the thread the kind of people that I want to put in here. So the output is going to look exactly like this, but here's what I do. I go to add field, and then I say message in thread. Okay, I might be going wrong here. And reply to thread. right? So if I just switch this on, it'll ask me which, I mean, it'll ask me which thread to kind of get into an text, right? Let me just go out and get into this again. So it should ask me which thread it would kind of look into. If I just kind of put in the title, I need the. So, another way of accessing the inputs is headline. You can just, sorry, so let me just write like this. So it'll kind of access the title of the person through, so I can just put name, and then I can just click, put in an at the rate, and I will find, what I'm looking for. So let's say I want the name, and then title is title, and then finally headline is, or maybe I just want to give the LinkedIn URL, right? So LinkedIn URL is LinkedIn URL, right? So that's the message I kind of will have. Reply to thread will ensure that, it'll reply to that exact thread that we have. And then if I run it, it starts giving me these kind of messages within that same thread, right? So that is an application that will remove like at least a few hours of work from each of your salespeople.